in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single day. Rudo, Jesse, AJ coming at you live as round 2 of the playoffs. Does it count? Has it officially begun, even if no games are getting played? I guess round 1 is over. Round 2 has not yet begun.
We're into the realm of round 2.
Right, yeah.
It's intermission.
Enough. There we go. Intermission between rounds 1 and 2. Perfect.
It's between the first and second period of the playoffs.
Every playoff's guaranteed to go to overtime. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of news to get to, lots of previews to get to, lots of stuff to get to. So let's not beat around. Let's start with the Avs. Jesse, you were at practice today. Obviously, Landy has been missing some time at practices. Kemper is back. Lots of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so Landeskog and EJ took maintenance days yesterday for both of them. That was their second maintenance day of this 8-day little break here. But they were both on the ice today. Really long practice yesterday. Not quite as strenuous today. Really not a ton of like major updates beyond those two. Kemper did talk yesterday, just kind of talked about the incident itself. It was scary. But he said he still has a teeny bit of swelling in that right eye a little bit and a little bit of bruising, but said it's all good. He can see his peripheral is back, all that good stuff. So that's good. Newhook, I know that's the one that a lot of people are wondering about. To me right now, he still looks like the scratch. He's skated in Landeskog's spot both times that he's been both times he's gotten a maintenance day. So that looks to me like he's probably on the outside, but they've had
not super surprised that they're not going to change the lineup after a sweep. But
yeah. I don't know. I thought maybe he'd get a look with just kind of the different style. AJ, I think you and I talked about this on a show this past week, where maybe stylistically he'd get a shot, but it looks like, they may just roll with it. They've been rolling 4 guys in white and gray, which is typically their third and fourth line jerseys.
Yeah.
So again, to me, it looks like you're watching Abe Kubel. If his play dips, Newhook will slot in. Honestly, the guys look good. They all sound ready. They all sound really anxious to get going. And beards are coming in nice, as we had a question in the chat. All with the exception of Kale, who does look like he's got a little bit of a mustache coming in. But I felt bad for him yesterday. Someone in media asked him if he gave up on growing the beard. It's like, bro, it's been a week. Give the kid a break.
Well, you got to call him out like that.
Yeah.
Damn.
No mercy.
Well, and he's up there with Taves, who I didn't realize, like, Taves has got a thick boy coming in. Like, dude can grow it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's real. It's definitely real for Taves. Avs, as of tomorrow, it will be, what, a full week of nothing? 8 days, 9 days?
8 days in between games because they wrapped it up on Monday.
Yeah, you're right. So today is the full week.
We were not expecting that when they filmed. We were like, oh, maybe Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, so here's a really interesting thing, and I'm Rudo. I hope I'm sorry.
No, go.
I mean,
this is where we're headed. Yeah.
Bednar sounded legitimately like annoyed with this yesterday. He goes, "Look, the whole point of wrapping a series up early is to be the one that gets the rest, and you get a tired team coming off of that." And he goes, and now St. Louis has been sitting around for more than half a week themselves. Like, he's like, I just don't feel like we really got the benefit that you're supposed to get from wrapping your series up early. So he sounded a little frustrated. I have to imagine this is probably because of the new TV deal, right? This seems like ESPN and TNT have said, we're not doing this. I mean, loosey-goosey.
The refusal to release the schedule at all until the entire first round was done.
Right.
Yeah, well, they had a couple conflicts with
Dallas could have changed.
Dallas having 2 teams, Miami having multiple teams in as well. There were some conflicts that they had to consider.
Do the Heat play out of the same?
I have no idea. I genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
But
I'll say I don't know either.
I mean, they've got trying to schedule all of that out. I can imagine was probably pretty difficult. But what's weird is we've seen it happen regularly in the past where they were just like, all right, you guys are good. You know what's happening. Let's go.
Go. Yep.
But I've also been making the assumption that it was just TV related and that they were like, hey, we want an entire weekend of game 7s and we don't want like game 1 leading into it.
Well, it's just so all over the place because you've talked about, the Avs in St. Louis have been waiting around forever. Meanwhile, they flip-flop on the Florida series, and that one starts Tuesday. Like,
right.
They don't even give all the game 7s that went double Wednesday. So,
well, and again, like I get the conflicts and all that stuff, but I did just think it was legitimately weird that had Dallas scored a goal in overtime, the Avs, the team that finished their series 4 days before the next closest person, or maybe 3 days before the next closest team, would have had to wait till the second day of the second round to start playing. I just thought everything about that was really just really odd.
Also, why does the Battle of Florida have a back-to-back in it?
Does it? I didn't even see that.
I just assumed that
3 and 4.
That seems
are on Sunday and Monday.
Incredibly dumb. Why would you ever have a back-to-back in the playoffs? That's just wrong.
Like last year, I got it. Like you had to. Like there were. You're trying to fit it all in, right? Like the bubble in Edmonton. Everybody played back-to-back.
The Avs just waited 8 days for their next round series. They can have 2 days off between games 3 and 4.
That has to be a Saturday scheduling conflict, right? Because what makes that even weirder is that
2 days off before. Yeah.
Right.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Chad has told us that the Heat and Panthers do not share a building. So that's an even weirder conflict.
Well, because the game should be in Tampa. The game 3 should be in Tampa. So what the heck? What is Monster Jam in Tampa or something?
What is going on in Tampa on
Time
that
to go
day?
Google the Amalie Arena.
I'm doing it right now.
Well, while we look up why in the world there's a back-to-back in the playoffs.
Good prep on our part here. We know lots of stuff here.
Wait, I feel like we could say the same thing to the NHL. Yeah, good prep here on the second round. You ended up with a back-to-back for the President's Trophy winning team.
There's nothing scheduled anywhere. I guess on that Saturday, there's Kane Brown is on tour, but there's nothing on the Sunday. Tuesday.
So that's what it is. So Kane Brown, whoever that is in town Saturday at 7. And so they had to push Tampa to Sunday and make them do a back-to-back Monday.
Move the Monday game to Tuesday, though. Look.
Yeah, that's really weird. So there you go. So Kane Brown. That is really shitty. There is no event in May that isn't Tampa Bay except for May 21st. There is no other events in Amalie Arena except for that. That's brutal.
That is so weird. Okay.
Imagine you're like the guy in charge of booking for that arena, and you're like, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding?"
In those situations, I always do just picture it being like one guy and like getting the email, like, "Oh, what?" And no one to like doesn't fall on anyone else. Like, no, you messed this up.
Well, and this is also
nice going, Jim.
Couldn't you have started the series on Wednesday instead?
Yeah, right. There's so many things.
You avoid this back-to-back?
So many things they could have done.
Because if you start the series on Wednesday, then you just go Wednesday, Friday, Sunday anyway.
Right. You're in,
and it's not. And
you're in Sunrise for the Friday game, so you're fine.
Yeah.
Can we have a moment of silence for the Amalie Arena like grounds crew?
Yeah, that's
clean brutal. Up Kane Brown's late Saturday night just to.
For an afternoon hockey game. Yeah.
Sunday.
It's going to be some bad ice in game 3.
Bro.
Okay. Anyway, there is plenty of other news around the league other than Tampa and Florida having a bit of a weird schedule.
All of it just felt very avoidable.
It did feel very avoidable. Where do you want to start with teams eliminated from these playoffs? Because there's a lot of storylines to go on here.
Can we jump into one that is not a playoff team first?
Sure.
And to me, this is the biggest news of today, with Pete DeBoer being out in Vegas.
Well, so the Islanders hire Lane Lambert, who has been the runner-up in a couple of job searches over the last few years, including Colorado's when they hired Bednar. And that was after firing Trotz. So then you hire Pete DeBoer, or they fire Pete DeBoer. Now DeBoer's track record is pretty damn good. So now he's going to be an attractive guy on the market. Trotz is on the market. Quenneville is still on the market. Like as much as
up coaching situation,
as much as I would like to believe that Quenneville's not going to get a redemption
better
story out of this, he's going to.
Both Tony DeAngelo and Evander Kane are in the second round of the playoffs, man. There are no consequences in the NHL.
Well,
this is what I'm saying.
The other thing too is like if you take that out of it for just a moment, like Joel Quenneville is an unbelievable coach, and as we've learned in sports,
right,
that's what's prioritized.
If you can produce at the highest level, then
right,
the NHL will overlook pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's it. Like, so the
NHL is still so much better than the NFL. It's crazy.
Oh God,
in regards to that.
Yeah, it's not good.
Big news of the day was DeBoer's being dismissed. The whole coaching staff too. It wasn't just like DeBoer. It was all of them are gone.
This isn't like out of the blue. It's not super surprised, given that they missed the playoffs. And well, it's Pete DeBoer. He historically has had a limit of the amount of time that he continues to be an effective coach anywhere.
With Trotz coming onto the market, it was like, okay, like they still had DeBoer under contract for a year, so they could look at the coaching market and say, we don't really want to dabble in this. We'll just run it back with Pete. And then there's enough. Either it's going to be one of these guys we've talked about, or they like somebody else that they see as available, and they were comfortable. They don't make this move at this time because their season's season's been over for 2 weeks. So they have clearly have some sort of a plan where they're not just like they didn't just like wake up today and we're like, yeah, let's fucking fire that guy. So
based on Vegas's PR, they might have.
Yeah. You know what? It came to me in a dream last night. This guy's fucking done.
Ooh, and Mark Stone's having back surgery.
Still over the cap next year, by the way.
Yeah.
So
not there's their LTIR. They don't have to make any moves.
So I got a question for you guys about DeBoer, and then I got a question about Trotz. DeBoer, is he kind of becoming the new Bruce Boudreau? He's great at getting your team into the second, third round of the playoffs, but
yeah, I mean Bruce Boudreau would have loved that.
Yeah, I think Pete DeBoer's his own animal, but he's absolutely the choke artist. He can't get it over the finish line 100%.
Yeah, I was saying it's with multiple teams now. And then two, I think a lot of people are making the Trotz Vegas connection. I just don't know if Barry Trotz, he just seems to go against the grain of a lot of the things that we've seen out of that organization.
He's going to be so sought after that he's going to be able to more or less just kind of pick his spot. Yep. He's not a guy that has to take whatever comes his way.
Well, right.
There are so many potential coaching vacancies. He can watch this market play out and be like, no thanks.
For
no
sure.
Thanks.
Well, I saw someone
thanks
talking about him. And they're like, well, why wouldn't he take it? It's an NHL job. It's like, yeah, but
That's
Barry Trotz isn't going to be begging for an NHL job. Like there's going to be teams like, hey, we'll fire our coach for you. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's going to have no shortage of offers.
I almost like Trotz is almost at the point where it's like, maybe he wants a front office job now. Like he's been doing the coaching thing for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe that is his part. Like maybe that's where he wants to go with it. And that's part of the story that we can't answer when we talk about this stuff. We just don't know.
Right.
We don't know what those guys want to do. We don't know what is attractive about a job to them. Because on the outside, I think, would it be fair to say that all three of us are kind of looking at the situation in Vegas and saying, I don't know that I want to be in that environment. Like competitive
There's just
team,
too much up in the air still.
like
Yeah.
you like that it's a competitive team and that you're in a weak division and that you feel like there's a path to success there. But organizationally, you have to have some serious questions.
Well, this goes back to the conversation that the three of us had for the last 2 months of the season. Well, really since the trade deadline, right? And the whole Evgeny Dadonov thing, kind of unfolded, was we were just saying like this has started to happen too often at every level, players, coaches, front office in Vegas, that to the point you may now be tipping that direction where, just because this is who we're talking about, I don't know if Barry Trotz would be like, ooh, that's a place I want to go, despite them having a really good roster, despite, Vegas being an attractive location, given, NHL cities, no tax, state tax, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you seriously may have just gotten to the point now where it's like, you're just not that attractive to people.
Like culturally, you're a little toxic right now. Like you're a little radioactive.
Well, I don't know how close Pete DeBoer and Barry Trotz are by any stretch of the imagination, but
you know they're going to talk.
Right, exactly. They're both NHL head coaches. There's a circle there.
That fraternity is very real.
And if I'm Pete DeBoer and I just got fired by Vegas and the stuff is true about Leonard and Pete DeBoer didn't know any of that, day one, I'm on the phone with anybody I can get my hands on and been like, yeah, they completely screwed me over for the entire season.
There's like an NHL head coach like group text where he's like, don't do it, fellas.
Boys, come on. This point in the chat about Coach Q, I think that's a great point. And that to me, that marriage makes a little bit more sense because he's kind of in the opposite position where, an NHL job does mean something to Joel Quenneville right now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also the possibility of there being so many openings. Detroit needs a coach. What's going to happen in Chicago? Winnipeg needs a coach. Vegas needs a coach. I guess the Islanders just filled that opening, so that's off the table. So, but like there's already
multiple spots.
Yeah.
Should be interesting. We do have to get to some of the eliminated teams as well. And any particular storylines? I feel by the end of round one, it felt like anyone could get eliminated, right? I don't think there's any big shock eliminations, really. So
I guess so. I'll go ahead and start it off. LA, as much as I was not surprised, just because I see Edmonton as such a flawed team, I thought that was a great performance from LA. No Drew Doughty. We're pretty obviously outgunned up front. But I just thought it was one of those things where it was like, for LA to be in this series, they have to be perfect in these areas and execute in these areas. And after game 3, they were like pretty close to being perfect in the areas they needed to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure you could ask a ton more out of the LA team as it was constructed.
Yeah.
I kind of feel about them. I don't know. I'm like respect, right? Like it was a good series. They fought hard. They felt wildly overmatched on the skill front.
Yep.
But like they made a series of it, and that's great. How much of that was them, and how much of that is Edmonton being the Oilers? Like it's it's a combination of them, and I really don't want to take away from the Kings, but I'm not convinced they're back next year. So I'm
them
kind of
being in the Pacific is their
Well,
it's the lack of the young blood not doing anything for them, right? They're getting by on the old dudes.
That's what concerned me. Look at all of their best players in the series, and it's like Phil Deneau and Kopitar and and Jonathan Quick. Like
nothing, dude.
You gave Calvin Peterson the huge deal this offseason, and Jonathan Quick played that entire series for you.
The 2 games Byfield got in, nothing. The 2 games Velarde got in, nothing. All 7 games from Kaliev, nothing.
Yeah. And like the one area where Kaliev should be an absolute difference maker is on the power play, and he's totally irrelevant there.
Yep.
Do you think if they have Drew Doughty, do they close that series out?
No.
You don't think so?
No. Because I don't think Drew Doughty was their problem. I don't think they have enough up front, man. More defense isn't what they needed for me.
Well, it's their best offensive weapon from the blue line.
I would say Victor Arvidsson was probably more important to them than Drew Doughty was.
I forgot that he was missing from them as well.
So and even then, I don't think Victor Arvidsson was enough, but it sure would have helped. So we'll see. They had
a tie game in Game 6. They had a tie game in the 3rd.
Yeah,
like you get a little bit of extra offense. I don't know.
You just never know for sure.
Yeah, no, good series, great series. Ended up being.
There were essentially no bad series in round 1. The Avs Nashville was the only real mismatch at the end of the round. So
that ended up pretty bad.
The one team, or I guess there are 2 teams that surprised me, or I feel a little bit unfortunate for, and that's Washington and Pittsburgh.
Washington, Pittsburgh, I feel genuinely bad for.
Sure,
I feel bad for Pittsburgh because they just couldn't catch a goddamn break.
Yep,
right.
Like you're talking about you're losing goalie challenges. You're getting some awkward rule interpretations. You're getting some bad luck here. Like you give up a scoring chance, and you've got guys like just perfect shot, like great stuff, right?
Beating you with Louis Domingue in net, and you're
right,
like
hey. you're talking like Louis Domingue is in net. Obviously, you're down to your 3rd goaltender. Sidney Crosby misses a couple of games. Like they just couldn't catch a damn break in that series, and they were this close to it anyway.
Yeah.
The Rangers just sort of lived that kind of charmed life, and I'm not going to be surprised when they get rolled in this next series.
Getting bodied. We'll talk about it later.
Well, and then Rudo. So I play with a guy who's a big time Caps fan, and where I do feel bad for them is they were this close to a 3-1 series lead.
They had a 3-goal lead, man.
Close. Well, I'm talking about that empty netter in game.
Yeah, sure.
They missed the empty net by an inch, and it was right there. But I mean, there's multiple of those instances though. They've got 3rd period leads that they blow in multiple games. They miss an empty net. Right. I mean, right before the goal that ended. I mean, they hit the post.
Right.
Yep.
Like
so my buddy, I was laughing because it was when the series I think was 3-2, wherever the series was sitting last Thursday. He goes, as soon as that empty net went wide, I knew we were losing the series. He was like, you can't miss that.
Don't survive those kinds of opportunities.
The difference,
postseason, man.
Like difference between Pittsburgh and Washington here is Pittsburgh ended up playing Louis Domingue for a bunch of those games.
Yeah, like you could absolutely make the argument that Pittsburgh deserved to win its series based on how they played, and Washington lost a couple of coin flips in which they started out ahead.
Washington rode their ponies, and mostly Ilya Samsonov for the playoffs, and he was terrible.
Yeah,
he was awful for them.
Yeah, he wasn't very good. I mean, Vanacek was worse, and they pulled him. Like, they just couldn't get good goaltending, which is the thing that we talked about in our preview as what was going to undo Washington, is that you like all the layers of their team except their goaltending. Everything, you like the experience, you like how they play, they're well coached, they're disciplined, they're organized, they do all these things, and all of it gets undone by goaltending. And then you go look at the series clinching goal, and you're like, it all gets undone by goaltending.
$2 from Ryan saying, is this where I subscribe to the Macarena facts? Thank you very much for the $2, Ryan.
That was
Yes, it is.
Fun.
You're in
It
the
was
right
fun on
place.
Twitter yesterday to talk Macarena facts with people.
He told the Macarena story again.
No, I was joking around with people on Twitter
even
about.
better, even better. Anything else we want to cover before we get into the second round previews?
I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Toronto at all.
Yeah. Have we talked about Minnesota on any past shows? Because I want to touch on them, and then I want to make sure we talk about Toronto.
Well, I mean, we can talk about everything. We can go all day if you want. I mean,
this is the day to do it.
Right. I just don't know that there's much to say about Toronto. Like, if you typed it up on a before the series, this is exactly how the script would look for the Toronto series.
Let me ask you this. I'll shift gears. If you were the owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, you were part of that ownership group, and you're having your postseason meetings with Dubas and Shanahan, all these guys, right? What's your directive?
So I've thought a lot about that. Here's the really unfortunate part. This, I think, six consecutive first-round losses, 5 consecutive Game 7 first-round losses. But I think this is the first one where it's like, you don't feel bad about it in a vacuum. This series by itself, you don't feel bad about it.
Really?
Yeah, because I think it was a good series. Hold on. Like I said, if you erase all history, just this series.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a 2-time defending champ. You played him to a Game 7, and I mean, like the way that Tampa played that Game 7 is why I picked them to win that series. There was just a calmness to them when Toronto started pushing late in the game. There was just a calmness and a composure to what Tampa was doing. So I don't think you feel bad about it. But then you do have to look at everything else that's happened. I think there probably needs to be a coaching change. And then I think you need to make some tweaks to your roster, but I don't think it's blowing it up. I don't think blowing it up is.
I would not touch that core. For sure would not touch that core.
Yeah.
I would feel bad about it. I think that there's a lot of respect. I really liked that Toronto team. I thought that had they gotten past Tampa, I would have picked them to beat Florida.
Yeah, me too.
I think that I agree. I'm just not touching that core. I think it's so freaking good. But at some point you got to wonder what the hell is wrong in Dodge, right? Right. I'm not trying to hold all of their history against them because, like in Colorado with the second round losses, not all of those are made the same.
Right.
But this series, the reality is Vasilevsky wasn't great in the series.
Yeah. Yep.
Vasilevsky wasn't great. Kucherov, kind of non-existent. Braden Point, hurt going into it, hurt in it, doesn't even finish it. You got a wounded duck. It's like the lion lets the gazelle just get away.
Well,
it's like the world's strongest gazelle. It's like the gazelle of gazelles. the best gazelle to have ever gazelled before, but they were wounded and they let him off the hook. Not to sound like Denny Green here, but they let him off the hook.
The area of Toronto that I think is concerning is I tweeted it out during Game 6 when they were going to the 5-on-3. I said, this 5-on-3 is the series. If Toronto kills this, they'll get through the rest of the game and be able to hold on, close the series out. If Tampa scores a tie, Tampa is going to come back and win the series. And you could just see it. When Alex Kerfoot went to the box, you could see it on the Toronto players' faces. Oh boy, here it comes. We watched it here with the Avs for years. They know how they find a way to lose in those big moments. The Avs found a way to lose in a lot of moments for like a decade from 2007 on. but like they just have that where they look like they expect bad things to happen. As much as they were buzzing in that game 7, they looked like they were just hoping one would go in. And that to me is the part where, like, you're right. That roster's sick. That roster is nasty.
Well, and like defense, like people hate on their defense, but defensively they're balanced, they're talented,
right?
They're pretty deep. Like I think Justin Hull is probably overplayed, and that probably has to end. But like,
that's the one weakness. But
between Sandin and Liljegren, I think you've got two guys who could step into bigger roles and have a more prominent place on the team. But like, money wise, what do you do? You've got to try and keep some of these cats. And now Jack Campbell's a free agent. You got as much out of Jack Campbell as you could have possibly asked for.
Yeah, in that series.
AJ's gonna hate this answer, but honestly, they need a little bit of clutch depth. Game 6, overtime, first minute, Alex Kerfoot gets a breakaway, can't finish. Ilya Mikheyev got multiple opportunities, couldn't finish.
Yeah, Mikheyev is a guy that as the series went on, you saw less and less of him, and you were like, oh man, is this really happening here?
So Kerfoot, I actually think is a great name to bring up. And like Kerfoot he's a fine player. You know, I don't want to like dump all over him, but that was someone who I was having a conversation with someone earlier when the series was first getting going. And we were talking about the one flaw that like we really saw with that Toronto team was like, wow, they sure lean on Kerfoot in like some like key situations. And just, you know, seeing him up close for a couple of years here, it's like just an odd guy to be a go-to, you know, like key middle six guy. He just doesn't bring that much. And I get what you're saying, Rudo. Like they may just need someone that isn't one of their top guys. And you know, like I did find it funny, and this isn't me like talking shit or trying to like dunk on it or anything. Like AJ, I was laughing to myself last night watching that game, or 2 nights ago, whatever it was. Because that one morning you and I were sitting at morning skate and you were saying, I just don't know if Tampa can beat him. They just don't have the same depth. And it's freaking Nick Paul.
Yeah, it's Nick Paul.
Yeah.
He scored the second goal, and I couldn't help but laugh because one, I remember saying that, and two, I hated that trade. Yeah. Like I really liked Nick Paul as a deadline guy, but I hated that deal that they made, and I said so. And I was like, Tampa's loving this thing right now, right? Like, but Nick Paul has also played a much larger role than
for sure.
Than I expected he would on that team. He's playing like 18 minutes a night, dude. I was like, what the fuck?
And
Nick Paul?
Like, to be fair, Tampa found a way. Brandon Hagel missed a wide open net in that hockey game, and Tampa still found a way to win. So, and maybe like I'm looking at their roster and I'm looking at their veteran depth, and I'm like, man, this isn't great. Mark Giordano, 2 points in 7 games. Sure, he plays defense. Great. Jason Spezza, 1 point, 1 assist in 5 games. Sure, he gave a cool locker room speech, but what did that guy do for you on the ice? Wayne Simmons only played 2 games in the series. Kyle Clifford got himself suspended in game 1.
This is where I think you have to start. Okay, look, do we need Kyle Clifford? Do we need Wayne Simmons? Do we need Jason Spezza around? They've got some prospects that are pushing on that NHL door a little bit. And you start to wonder, like, is it worth it to have these guys, like, to view the leadership obviously has not mattered. Like the experience, they've walked the walk, they've done all this, they've seen all this in the NHL, all this stuff, right? Like all their selling points. Okay, well, are they still good NHL players? Not really. They're not like bottom of the barrel atrocious. You're not like, oh my God, they've got to get rid of these guys. But what's the upside at this point of them? They're hard capped skill wise. The leadership has not mattered because they can't get them through those kinds of moments. It just hasn't paid off. So what's the point?
Is it purely like the NHL like 13 mentality where it's like you have all these like guys that are getting near the end of their career and they'll take minimum salaries and you just fill out your bottom 6 and hope that Jason Spezza does one dope thing for you on a playoff run and gives an impassioned speech? Because like you're right, man. Like these aren't.
If you're talking about he gives an impassioned, great man, make that dude an assistant coach. Like seriously, like if he's not doing, I don't know what to do there. I think it's a really, really, really good team. And
I agree with that.
I just don't know, man. Like that, it's a really, I want to save that for the offseason because I think that they're one of the many like interesting teams that we could talk about in the summer about like what they could do. But it was I genuinely one thing that I do want to say is I love that fan base, like everybody loves to hate Toronto. Like it's the easy thing to do in the hockey world. It's like hating the Yankees, right? Without all the success. It's more like hating the Cubs because their fans are the worst and the media like obsesses over them. And you're just like, yeah, you've never won anything. Why do we care so much? But I love that fan base like lets itself get its heart broken every year. Like they start to believe and they start to buy into it. And I'm just like, this is what sports should be. This is what it should be about. It should be that heartbreak. It should be that belief that, because someday they're going to win a cup, right? Like probably someday they're going to win a cup. In theory. And like, will that city still exist after that happens, or will they just shut it down after that? Where they just like, the level of joy that they're going to have is going to make everybody else in the world very jealous.
So we can move on. I don't have much to say after this, but there's a comment that just came through here. It said Avs will take Nylander. And I know that's kind of being tongue in cheek, but that is something that I could see them doing. And I don't necessarily know if it's Nylander, but like kind of making another trade like they did with Kadri, where it's like a hockey trade, send a player and get a player back that's also good, just as kind of like a shakeup. That would be the one thing if I'm Toronto that I would be open to, is like hey, can we get a like for like? Can we improve ourselves somewhere by sending out a player that's good? I think Nylander had a very good series. I'm not saying I would trade him, but if you feel like you got to do something drastic, I think that's kind of the only thing that I would do. Otherwise, after this series, I just don't.
It's funny that you bring that up, and like I get Toronto was in a spot where Kadri just didn't make sense for them anymore, but Tyson Barrie did not work out for them at all.
Well, and like when you talk about like, because like I was dicking around on Twitter and I was like, oh, they should trade Nylander for Bo Byram, like.
Right.
No, the answer is no. But
absolutely not.
But like they should, like they have to do something to get them a little bit more balanced and a little bit harder to play against.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there is one thing, I think that they're still a little too skill tilted.
Get what they thought Wayne Simmons was, but it turns out like Wayne Simmons wasn't that guy anymore.
Just a little like I hate to be the guy that's like, oh, all you need is more grit, but like just a little tougher to play against. And I'm not saying you've got to upset the apple. Maybe that's where you swap a Kerfoot for, I don't know, pick up like a grinding middle six guy out there in the league somewhere, right?
JT
like,
Compher, come on now.
Come on. That would be fucking hilarious if they did that. Like identical contracts and just like traded them one for one. And we're like, let's just try. Each team's like, let's just try something different.
Well, so AJ, like you're, because I'm fully with you. Like I hate the. Oh, they need to get grittier than it, but like they don't have a Landeskog.
Well, and like I look at like, what do I like about this year's Avs more than I did last year's, and it's like I like that they swapped out Donskoy for Lehkonen, for example.
Yep.
I like the changes that they made. I like that they swapped out Jost for Sturm. I like that they made like the little tweaks around the roster gave them a little more of an all-around element, a more physical, a little bigger, a little tougher to play against.
It's the ability to dig pucks, right? Not necessarily when you say grittiness, you're not necessarily meaning this stupid fun pace.
Yeah, I don't mean like go get Cal Clutterbuck and like have him run into stuff for 3 hours, right? Like I mean like you want to get guys that bring a little bit more of a well-rounded element to your team. A little less skill trade-off for a little more classic, like hockey grinder style type of thing.
I think about what Sturm said when he first got to Colorado. He said, I try to be hard to play against and not, I'm going to go put you into the third row, but I'm hard to take off the puck. I'm heavy on the forecheck. I'm always on your hip. Like, that's just the stuff that I just don't know if they've got enough of. And again, you look at the Avs and I think maybe, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, Landeskog, Sturm,
Yeah,
Kadri to an extent,
sure.
McKinnon to an extent, where you've got these guys that are just
even
Manson.
even a guy like an Abe Kubel, like your middle six guy, like what does he bring? Why is he literally in the lineup for the entire first round series? It's not because he's a better hockey player than Alex Newhook. It's because he just goes out there and runs into some stuff.
Right.
He gives you a little bit of it gives you just a little extra element in an area where you don't have a lot of that.
And to me, it's no surprise that of the three college bros that came in all at once, Compher, Jost, and Kerfoot, it is no surprise to me that Compher has been the one that is still left here because he has the most of that of those three guys. Regardless of how you feel about Compher or whatever, just
there were other things, but yeah, like he ended up like last man standing for a reason.
Right. Across multiple off seasons where they looked at moving all three of them at different points, they just kind of kept coming back to, well, he's the most different of the three versus what we
have. We haven't talked about Dallas. Does anybody have any quick thoughts on them? Because we've already spent 40 minutes on this.
God, that team was boring.
Yeah.
Jake Ottinger.
I mean,
insane performance by that kid. Oh my God. Jesse, I know you wanted to touch on Minnesota really quick.
Yeah, no, they're just a really interesting team for me. Because I think they're one of the few teams, maybe outside of like Pittsburgh, Washington, that are, Boston, that are the veteran teams that are kind of the pendulum is swinging back the other way. If there were different circumstances, I'd feel for Minnesota because they thought they were a lot better than they were. A lot of people thought they were a lot better than they were. They lose a series where the first couple games were competitive, but then they really kind of just lost grip on it. And I don't know. I don't think they get better. I don't think they can. I actually think that team is going to go in the other direction for the next 3-4 years. And it's just a really interesting situation there because they kind of go against the grain of a lot of the other playoff teams that were eliminated in the first round. And there's going to be a really interesting team to follow. So
one guy I'm out of the Central Division. I want to see what happens. I want to see what happens with Kevin Fiala in Minnesota.
Yep.
Because that is going to be fascinating. And the other guy, I want to see what happens with Dennis Gurianov out of Dallas.
Yeah.
He had lost all trust to that coaching staff, and he is 24 years old. He's unsigned RFA, and there's your reclamation project.
Yeah.
Doesn't have amazing underlines. They're not brutally bad or anything, but definitely a guy where you wonder what he looks like if he gets a different look elsewhere. Anyway, I'm done with all the eliminated teams.
Yeah.
Fuck them all.
Minnesota, my big question is
Peasants.
What do they do in goal? Because they have 1 year left of Talbot, and do they just send it with Jesper Wallstedt, I guess? But
did you see what Cam Talbot's wife was tweeting after that game?
No, I did not.
She was like, can't wait to see what's next in our adventure. Like he's got a year left on his deal.
See ya.
And so it was that's an aggressive thing to tweet.
I think that whole situation with Fleury upset Cam Talbot way more than they have let on or has gotten out.
And I think Cam Talbot's got every right to be mad.
I agree 100%. That was
right to be upset. I wasn't sure how I felt about it until I spent some time with it. And I was like, if I'm that dude, I feel ultra. I went to the All-Star game for you this year. And while that might have been a little bit of I played my ass off down the stretch. I'm the reason we got home ice, and then you play the other guy
straight up
until game 7, and then you
hang the series on him.
Yeah, you hang the series on me. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Like that's a dude that when he got back in his locker, there wasn't a knife waiting for him. It was a chainsaw. Yeah. And he just ripped that thing up and went into the coach's office. Like,
yeah, I was going to say
that that was a messed up. They did him so dirty.
Yeah. No, right. I'm with you. I'd be pissed.
we've done a whole podcast of content. We got a whole nother podcast worth coming to you. So stay tuned.
By the way, another hour of us being on air. So hope you guys have all day.
We are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. Go get 8 different kinds on tap down at the DNVR bar or anywhere. Find it at your local liquor store. Go to breckbrew.com. They're giving away 2 tickets to every Avs home game in the playoffs, including the one tomorrow, including ones in round 3 if they make it there, including the Stanley Cup final if they make it there. So go over to Breck Brew, go nominate someone who deserves to go to a home playoff game at Ball Arena, because Breck Brew is genuinely one of the dopest companies ever. Cannot emphasize enough how ridiculous it is that they're giving away playoff tickets. It's kind of insane. So
very cool.
Go jump on that train while you still can. We're also sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook. You can use code DNVR when you sign up with them. Of course, get amazing odds boosts every single day. But also, if you bet $5 on any NBA playoff game right now, they're giving you $150 in free bets. So you don't even have to get your bet correct. You can, if you bet on the Suns last night, you just still got your $150 in free bets, despite that absolute beating. Jump on that. Go ahead and get yourself the money, and then you can go bet on the Avs or otherwise in hockey or darts, badminton, bowling, you name it. You can bet on it over at DraftKings Sportsbook.
There was a super obscure sport that I meant to text you about at like 4:00 in the morning that I saw pop up, and I cannot remember what it was because it was like out there, and I should have done it.
I can't imagine what it even was. Okay, so go over to DraftKings, do all that. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Yeah, drone racing. They do have that.
Yeah.
Okay. Second period.
Drone racing isn't obscure though. They have that shit on ESPN.
Yeah, that shit's kind of.
AJ, what LPC bar was it that we would go to that you and I loved, and they would do drone racing on like Thursdays or something?
Oh, we went to so many different bars that we really liked.
Yeah.
I think there was only the one that we really struggled with.
Yeah.
The night of that Flames game where McKinnon fell off the bench and we had to sit in that cold ass corner. That's
freezing cold. Yeah,
that night sucked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kabaddi, crazy sport. I don't understand it at all, but it is a sport. So first series, we're gonna stay in the West. We're going with the Battle of Alberta. Edmonton versus Calgary.
What a victory for all of us that
it actually happened. Yeah.
I was just sitting there. When Edmonton won it, I was like, Calgary's gonna screw this up, aren't they?
It was looking like they were gonna in that game 7
Whoa.
too. It was looking dicey for a minute there.
We got more chat bait. A lot of bait today.
There has been a lot of chat bait today. It's true. Anyway,
hear what Tim Peel said?
I don't care what Tim Peel said.
True.
Well, people seem awfully upset about it.
The only thing Tim Peel could say that I would care about would be like, "Yep, there was refs gambling on games."
True.
Fulton Donahue. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm like, what's that guy's name from the NBA then? Like
Donahue.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Donahue went to jail for betting on games and like.
And was like, everybody's doing it.
Yeah, went like full snitch. It was like, you're all coming with me.
That'd be about the only thing that could make Tim Peel relevant to me.
I wonder if that dude like officiated basketball games in the yard.
Oh, that'd be hilarious.
Like, I wonder if he's calling fouls and shit. Anyway. Sorry.
There might be some fouls getting called in this series. Matthew Tkachuk is involved. Obviously, this is the first time since like the 90s that the Battle of Alberta has happened in the playoffs.
It's been a while. I know it's been a while.
Did you know that last night was the first time that Calgary had won a first round series against somebody other than Vancouver in 34 years.
Wow. That's
I did not know that.
Man, I tell you, like, some of the incompetence of some of the Canadian teams over the last 20 years has been pretty impressive.
So let's start with the part of this conversation that you have Edmonton's top scorers, obviously McDavid and Draisaitl are up there.
91.
Is that the last time these two teams played?
91.
Is this the one graphic we didn't upload? Incredible. I have a talent for finding these things. Anyway, yeah. Edmonton's top scorers are obviously McDavid and Draisaitl. There's no big surprise there. Oh, there it is. We found it. Look at that. You also have Evander Kane up there. Has paid off in spades for Edmonton on the offensive side of the puck. The other side of their conversation is it's still Mike Smith back there. So can Edmonton survive off of the powerhouse offense only?
I mean, it's the same conversation for Edmonton. Every series will be the exact same.
Yep.
Can Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, can their offensive firepower carry them through mediocre defense and we'll call it unreliable goldtending? Because there are days where Mike Smith is incredible, and then there are days where Mike Smith is not, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, it's going to be so. Leon Draisaitl, I think you can expect probably isn't going to be at 100%.
He's fine, quote unquote.
Right, and I don't know, man. I just everything I thought about Edmonton was confirmed to me in that series, and I think if they get anybody else other than LA, they lose, and I think they lose in 5 or 6, and they're Connor McDavid does his fake, really frustrated thing again, and they say we got to get better, and then they run it back again next year. Like,
can we talk about Connor McDavid for just a sec?
Yeah,
because I think fake is a good word for him. Like, for a long time, it's felt very robotic.
Yeah.
But every time I feel like he shows emotion, and look, maybe he's just like socially awkward. I am also socially awkward, and maybe this is how it comes across to people. But it feels really fake. Like when he's really excited, it feels like I'm supposed to be really excited.
Yeah.
And when he's really mad about something, it feels like I'm supposed to be really mad about something.
Yeah.
Like I wonder, like, I'm just curious about him, like internally, how he's wired. Because it just doesn't feel like anything that he ever does other than blowing past defenders and being breathtakingly talented at hockey.
Right.
Feels natural. Everything else feels really awkward to me.
Well,
he is an unbelievable talent. Like, holy shit, are we lucky to get to watch this guy play? But he kind of emotionally feels wired, like kind of oddly.
This is definitely a conversation for the off season, but should that guy be wearing a C?
So Rudo, that's where I was gonna go. Like,
yeah,
that to me is his, and it's not his problem. He didn't ask for that. But like, there's a reason why if you look around the league,
that's fair.
A lot, Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews, Patrick Kane, like there are a lot of the guys that teams look to be the offensive engine that are not the leaders on their team. And they lead in a different way. They lead by example. Nathan McKinnon goes out there and sets the standard for work ethic and but he's not like the emotional leader of that room. You know what I mean? Like he's got his own leadership qualities in one way that are very different from Gabe Landeskog. And for the Abs, Gabe Landeskog is the voice that everyone needs. That keeps Nathan McKinnon in check. I just think Connor McDavid needs his Gabe Landeskog. He needs to be the get on my back and all scored this goal against all odds with 3 guys hanging off me to put us up 2-0 in a closeout game. But like, I just don't think he's the guy that's like getting everyone revved up before a game.
I agree. from an emotional standpoint, a dude that comes across as fake can't be your emotional leader, right? Like regardless of the reason.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough sell. And I've talked about where I think McDavid has been miscast as their captain for a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You were the one that brought this up earlier this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've long felt that way, but when you watch it work, man, holy lordy, is he fun to watch.
But
now going against Calgary, dude, I don't know. I don't feel I think the offensive fire. Look, we made fun of Johnny Gaudreau a lot for his disappearing act in the postseason. He showed up in that series against Dallas eventually. Took him a while.
He got the series winner, right? Like
he's not going to have 4 games to work himself into the series this time around. But if he can keep that going, he was awesome. Like last night, he was awesome.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's bring up the Calgary top scorers here just to cement the fact that Gaudreau is at the top, unsurprisingly, with Matthew Tkachuk and then Elias Lindholm rounding out their top 3. You will notice the total production from that series against Dallas was low.
Yeah.
Not a lot of goal scoring getting done. So you can expect a little bit of a gear shift for Calgary against an Edmonton team. Edmonton is going to play basically nothing like Dallas did. So is that something that's advantage Edmonton or advantage Calgary? Because neither of these teams have had a ton of time to prepare for this series.
I think this is Edmonton or advantage Calgary. I think going through the war that they went through, because like the Edmonton LA series might have gone 7 games, but they weren't particularly close a lot of the time. Handful of those games were over early and they were just kind of coasting to the finish. And I think the war that Calgary just went through is going to benefit them in the same way that I think the war that St. Louis went through was going to benefit them against Colorado, who didn't get pushed hardly at all in their series until they each had a fucking month in between the series starting. And now it's just like, well, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
But I do think that that absolute, like the scratch and the claw and the warfare and getting through that and winning it, I think is going to be rejuvenating for them. And I think it's advantage Calgary to start. Now, if this goes 7, again, I think that, like, obviously the more you do that wear and tear is going to take its toll. But I think it's advantage Flames early. And then maybe if the series goes 7 again, I would say it's advantage Oilers late.
Well, and you know, Calgary, I give them big time credit because
advantage Alberta. Yeah.
We talked, I think in our initial series preview about, Calgary, they've been in this position before. How are they going to handle it this time? Almost no adversity faced in the regular season. How are they going to handle it? And I fully agree with you, AJ. Like the fact that they stuck with that and someone like Johnny Gaudreau battled through, a stellar series performance from Jake Ottinger, really low scoring games. The fact that they were able to battle through that and come out the other side, I think says a little bit more about them. As we're like, for me, Edmonton, that whole time, it was like, yeah, but you guys should just win this game. You should just win this series. And they barely came out the other side of it. Mm-hmm. I think it's advantage Calgary early. I think they are feeling good. And Edmonton just doesn't have the depth. Like they just don't have the depth to match up. They seriously, I will die on this hill. Had Edmonton pulled any other of the 15 teams in the playoffs, East or West, they would be at home right now.
I don't think they would. They would have smoked Nashville, but
would they have?
Yeah, with no UC Saros. Yeah,
I mean, they got a sub 900 performance from Jonathan Quick, and it took them 7 games.
Yeah, I hear you.
I just don't know. I mean, I guess that's kind of regardless. My point is, to me, I think it's them and the Rangers are kind of the weakest teams now in the second round.
Oh, I think I would agree with that. And I think defensively, is where Calgary really separates, because top to bottom, Calgary's defense is good. I don't think that they have that true top pairing, but they're deep and they're solid and they're physical and they bring just enough offense to give you a problem. And I don't feel the same. Edmonton's defense is all extremes. That's the Chris Russells and the Tyson Berry and Darnell Nurse. Like, these guys drive the crap. They play offense, right? And then you have like defense only players and like Cody Ceci and
about that. Because
Duncan Keith, and I understand, I know what's coming, but I understand the goal he scored, but also
Cody Ceci's our X factor for Edmonton. By the way, let's use the graphic before we destroy it. Dude had 6 points in that series against LA. Cody Ceci, and I'm just putting him on here because where did this come from? For Cody
right,
Ceci?
And this is exactly what I'm saying. Right. If he's gonna blow up and he's gonna be that two-way guy for them, that changes their dynamic entirely. If he goes right back to being the Cody Ceci he's been his whole fucking career,
right?
Well, but
that's a 5-game series.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. They need something like that to be competitive. Is kind of what it feels like.
They need some more weird shit to happen. Yes, I agree with you.
Well, and the other part that we haven't even touched on, and I don't know, maybe I'll be jumping the X Factor gun again.
I doubt it.
The matchup in net.
Advantage all the way to Markstrom.
Right. Like it's to your point, AJ, like even on a good night for Mike Smith, like I'm still picking Markstrom 10 out of 10 times. Why'd you say
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I'm definitely
something is happening with AJ and he's audibly reacting, making faces, cutting himself off.
Wild shit going on in chat.
Yeah, I was gonna say
happening right now.
No, anyway, it's all Markstrom, man. And Markstrom, he didn't have to do a lot at times in that game 7, but seriously, you stop a clean breakaway with 2 minutes to go after you've been sort of sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
And he did his job.
Those games last night, there is more pressure on Markstrom than there is on Ottinger. Late in that game. Jake Ottinger, it's you've played great. You've done everything you can. Obviously for him, he doesn't want to give that one up, of course, but if you're Markstrom, you're standing there and you have time to think about that. We have dominated this whole game. I can't lose this for us. I can't make the mistake and get outdone here. And I think that's a great point, AJ. The fact that he's engaged enough and has the nerves to stop a breakaway in the dying minutes, that's you've got your game right between the ears as well as on the ice.
I think he's really good. He looks locked in to me. The Flames to me, they just look deeper. They look more well-rounded. If you're going down the series and you're saying, okay, who are the best players in the series? You start with Edmonton, and then how far do you get until after McDavid and Draisaitl? How far down do you get until you get to another Oiler?
It's not great.
I mean, I guess Evander Kane,
right? And it would be Evander Kane, and then Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would be somewhere in there. But otherwise, you're Flames. It's gonna they're just. I think they're just deeper. They're better.
Well, and that's they ultimately our X factor. I went with Rasmus Andersson, but pick someone in Calgary's top 4. You can go with Noah Hannafin, depending on how they want to match up against McDavid. Maybe Chris Tanev takes some of those minutes.
Yeah, and look, full marks. They got through Game 7 without Chris Tanev.
Yep.
So, and they're going to need Chris Tanev if they're going to make a long run. He's way too important to that defense.
Yep. So, the question is always the same against Edmonton. How much can you prevent McDavid doing? Because he's going to get his, obviously, but you can't let him and Draisaitl beat you. And if you don't, you probably win the series.
Well, and that's just my thing, and that's where I think this all comes down to depth. And I just think Calgary is too deep to let two players beat them, especially with the fact that Edmonton has to score a lot of goals to win games.
Yeah.
Like they just do.
They haven't done a whole lot of winning in low scoring environments.
Yeah. And I just don't know if this is a series where rolling four lines, to AJ's point about Calgary's defense, to what we just said about Markstrom versus Smith, I just don't know, as good as Connor McDavid is and as good as Leon Draisaitl is, if he's healthy, I just don't think those two guys can outscore their problems against teams now that we're into the second round and you're not playing an LA Kings team that was already overachieving, and then we're missing Drew Doughty and Victor Arvidsson.
Perfect. Let's predict the future.
Let's do it.
Let's predict. What do we have for this series on the prediction radar? That's 3 Calgarys and an Edmonton.
Rudo. All right, I got to hear the explanation for this.
Look, man, I said it in our Dallas predictions. I think Calgary sucks, dude.
Okay.
I don't think they're a good hockey team. I think they're sheltering a lot of issues that are getting by with Jacob Markstrom playing well and a top line that is actually showed up, so credit there. But I don't think their depth is as good as everyone has made it out to be this year on the forward side, especially. I think McDavid, despite his fake emotions, is on a little bit of a mission. I think Edmonton is going to be extra charged up because it's the Battle of Alberta. And look, I picked it in 7, right? So it could 100% go Calgary.
You picked the coin flip.
Yeah. I just picked Edmonton side. And more than anything, I picked it because I need Nathan McKinnon versus Tyson Barrie. I need it.
I see. So this is I am predicting a thing that I would like to happen down the road, not
founded in reality at all.
Gun to my head, I probably am not picking Edmonton, but because I don't have one to my head, I can go ahead and pick whatever.
Yep.
All right, that's fine.
I was tempted to take it Calgary 4-1, but I think this series gets 3-1. Edmonton will hang on for a night. I think it's done.
I do think that they get out early and they kind of control the series. Calgary does. And yeah.
Home ice, all that good stuff.
If you're asking why not Zod instead of Tyson Barrie, then I don't know what to tell you. All right, McKinnon and Barrie have something special. If there was ever going to be an evil X that McKinnon would have to defeat, it's Tyson Barrie.
Yeah. He's a good. Okay. He's the good last evil X.
Yep, the one that he actually liked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So any final thoughts on this Edmonton Calgary series before we go on to the next one?
Should be great. Should be hype. Should be feel bad for Jesse.
Why?
Because you have to cut out Alberta next round.
Yeah.
Either way.
We were talking about. I was talking about that today with Connor McGahey. I was like, damn, that does kind of suck. That doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah.
Round 3 is in Alberta.
It didn't occur to me until after they won it last night, but I was like, boy, sure would have been nice that Dallas made that conference final just to make life easier for us.
Jesse should be rooting for Edmonton purely based on F sitting in the Calgary press box.
Yeah,
F
heights don't pop at all. But everyone was saying the exact opposite, because I guess Calgary as a city is way better than Edmonton.
Yeah.
I've been to Alberta. I've never actually been into either like major metropolitan areas. But everyone was saying that Calgary is way, way, way better than Edmonton. So I would like to see that Rogers place.
Opinion.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's a strong opinion. It's like people taking sides and Calgary and versus Edmonton when. Like how much time have any of them spent in either one of those cities? Like hanging out there. Not they flew in and they like walked around the 5-star hotel that they get to stay in.
Right.
Like how much time have they actually? I'm just curious. I would be curious. Like,
and I have heard that the Calgary press box is like a rite of passage type thing. Heights don't bother me.
I refuse, dude, because I would have a full-blown panic attack going up there.
Interesting.
I can't. I struggle with heights, and that would be a fucking no-go for me.
Yeah, but that's about it.
All right. We are brought to you by Lightshade. You can go to one of 11 at different locations here in Colorado to find whatever THC or CBD products you might need. You get 25% off when you use code DNVR at checkout on products at lightshade.com. You can order for pickup. You can also go in store and use it. Either way works just fine, including products like Escape Artist Topicals. They have a bunch of different options ranging from 1-to-1, I think, all the way up to 80-to-1, depending on what THC to CBD level you need. Super easy stuff. You just rub it right on your wrist if you got a little something, or anywhere else that you might have a little bit of pain. It's topical, which literally means you put it right on there and it starts working for you. Starts working super fast, 10 to 15 minutes. Super awesome stuff for any aches and pains that you might have. So highly recommend you go check them out at Lightshade. Again, 11 different locations in the Denver metro area. If you're local, go hit one up. Tell them DNVR sent you over there. Next series that we have on the list is the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New York Rangers. A bit of an interesting spot here. On the one hand, you have Carolina getting in, surviving a series where they used both Ranta and ultimately their third goaltender in Kochkov. Coochie, sure, that works. Carolina got through it. They took Boston in 7. New York, massive comeback in their series over Pittsburgh. I'm gonna be honest with you though. Igor didn't look that good.
No,
he looks spent.
This is probably the series I've got the least to say about because Igor looks like 2014 Varley. He's just out of gas. He just looks out of gas.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, like, he's been phenomenal all season. Phenomenal. Was just good enough to get him through round 1. But I mean, like, he looks like he's being held together by glue right now.
Well, and it sure seems unlikely that the Rangers are going to have the same kind of good fortune that they had. I mean, they were down 3-1. Yeah. Crosby gets hurt, doesn't play for a couple of games. They get to go against a third goaltender. You have the runaway Vezina winner against a third goalie,
and you're squeaking by.
And you are game 7 in overtime on a power play. Like, you're like the thinnest margin imaginable to get there. So and now you're going against a team that, all respect to Pittsburgh, but I think Carolina's better.
Yeah.
And I just think you're going to see them. You're going to see them. Maybe the Rangers are going to steal a game because that's what the Rangers do. They're going to win a game they don't belong in. It's fine. But I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be an overly competitive series. Like, the scores might be close, but I don't think that the on ice play is going to be. It's going to be. Can Shesterkin be brilliant and have them lose 2-1, or is he going to fall apart and have them lose 4-1?
So, AJ, you brought it up. I don't remember if it was on a show or if you and I were just talking, but you mentioned it last week. The only area where I could see this being an issue for Carolina and pulling New York into the series is the high end. Carolina, I think you made this point on the show last week, so I promise I'm not fully stealing credit for your thought. Carolina just doesn't have the guy. Who's the guy for Carolina? And it's all kind of by committee, which I think
those are your top scorers. Jacob
Slavin led you in points. And don't get me wrong, Slavin's dope, but that dude should not be leading you in points.
Like Jacob Slavin and Tony DeAngelo. Like, it goes to show exactly what Jesse's saying, what I said last week. Like, if you look at their roster and you have to pull who's their top guy, who's their alpha, who's their number one guy in a playoff series that you're saying on a power play, this guy's getting it done. It should be Sebastian Aho. Where was he on that leaders list, the point leaders list? Right. Where was he in so many of the big moments of that series? And I'm not saying the guy can't get it done in the postseason or anything like that. It's not like that. I just don't see him imposing his will on games consistently enough. Like, he's got games where he's great, but I just don't see him being that like dynamic game-changing element. The same way that, like, you look at Mika Zibanejad had what, like 6-7 points in the last couple of games of the series against Pittsburgh. Like, that's one of their top guys who was it. That's it. He didn't drive the bus. Like, those dudes were the bus. You're talking about Igor Shesterkin as their guy, but when you get into like, okay, well, who's going to score for them? Those 4 names are it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are the guys. You get into that, and then you're like, oh yeah, like other guys exist. You know, there's a Lafreniere and a Ryan Strome. You know, Andrew Kopp is down there. Okay, great. Like, that's wonderful that those guys are there. But that top line, Adam Fox, that's it. If you can manage them, if you could just just draw even with them in production, you'll win the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's just not. I don't think this series is that complicated, and you know, obviously, if Igor finds his game and plays out of his mind, that can change things for New York, right? But
no.
It's a really tough sell for me to see Igor getting back to the guy he was in the regular season.
Well, dude, it's just like, I mean, and none of this isn't anything that I'm like taking away from him, but like, he played so well and he had to be so big in so many games for them to win and to get to the position that they're in, that just physically, like, I just don't know how much longer he can be relied on to that extent. And you started to see the wheels come off in the first round. And again, big credit to the Rangers. They scraped it together enough. But AJ, I'm going to steal one of your favorite sayings here. I think this is going to be a series where it's going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts. And I just don't think the Rangers are going to be able to, they're going to have to shorten their bench too much, that the longer this series goes, once you get past game 3, I just don't think they're going to have the legs. I don't think Shesterkin is going to be able to drag them through this. Carolina's got their own problems, but I just give me the depth over the limited high-end talent.
I also think that this is like it's kind of like an extreme version of Colorado St. Louis, where you have team process versus team anti-process. Like, team does everything right, you know, but
which is Carolina, by the way.
Yeah, the shots on goal, the chances, they dominate possession, they grind, they've got high-end skill. It's not consistent, but it's there. They do so many things well. They're so good defensively. They're great on the penalty kill. Like, so many things that Carolina does well, you love. And then the Rangers are just some schoolyard bullshit. They're Calvin ball, man. Like, they make it up, and it works for them. They get by because they've got Igor at the back end pulling them through things. And it's just not something that it can win a playoff round or two. But against a team this good, as solid as Carolina, like, Carolina's just so solid top to bottom that I think that the luck train is going to run out for the Rangers.
So let's get to X factors then. AJ, I'm assuming you changed this one.
I did.
Okay. I wanted Andrew Kopp because the dude has been playing out of his mind since he came to New York.
Nope. I put it as Jacob Trouba because if he smokes somebody and takes them out for multiple games in a series and gets to continue to play, that changes the series. And we've seen Jacob Trouba has gotten away with a number of questionable hits all season. They're all borderline, and there's always like that strong line where you're like, You can't hit people in the head, period. And then it's like, well, what do you want him to do differently?
Bro, this guy is becoming the Evander Kane of on-ice incidents. We're pretty sure he did it, but I can't prove it for sure.
Well, it's like you keep saying, well, what do you want him to do differently? And it's like when you get into like the 6th incident in a single season, maybe what you want him to do differently is to stop stepping up and hitting guys in the head. Maybe. Like, come on. So I have him as the X factor because that dude could just smoke anybody at any given time and totally flip a series on its head.
Now, there's been a couple of them, giving him the credit. There's been a couple of them this year where they've been questionable. But like when I have gone back and watched them, it's like, yeah, no, that is just unfortunate. He caught that guy real hard and he did everything right. But like, there's also been a couple of them this year where it's like, I don't know if he did everything right there. Like that certainly looked a little avoidable. To your point, AJ, like I just think it's weird. Like even Zadorov, Department of Player Safety reviewed it, talked to him, interviewed him, and then put out a statement saying, here's why we ultimately ruled there was no supplemental discipline. I just find it weird that Jacob Trouba hasn't gone through it, even that process.
Yeah.
We want
no call or anything. Yeah.
Right. To AJ's point, hey, Jacob, this is the 6th time this has happened. We figure we should maybe just chat with you real quick and just kind of get an idea of where your head's at. And
at least text the guy some fucking question marks.
Right. Like,
bro,
what were you seeing there? Yeah. But like I said, yeah, like it just does seem to be like, yeah, everyone agrees this kind of looks dirty, but I can't really say for sure.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't agree with me on this, but at a certain point, and I get it, some plays happen too fast. There's some plays that you're just not going to be able to react to. But if you're in a situation where you can recognize that a dude's head is down, are you in a situation where you can avoid hitting that downed head?
So, like, for me, what's even weird about it, so I think of
let's try to keep this, like, somewhat focused.
Sure.
Here.
Sure.
But like, I think of the hit on Jacob McDonald earlier this year.
Yeah.
For the Abs. Where, again, that's one where you had a player at his head down, but, like, it's shoulder to shoulder right through the chest.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Can't really do much about it. It's unfortunate. The stuff for Trouba, it's all been just borderline enough where it's like, that's not quite shoulder to shoulder. That's not quite right through the chest. There is some contact on the chin. And it's just weird that he's had this many borderline incidents and no one has taken a second look at it.
I mean, this is the same conversation that we've had about Tom Wilson for a long time.
Yep.
You do enough borderline things, people are just like, look, he's not learning anything because he's not getting punished ever.
Yep.
Right.
And now you've got a dude out there that's changing the course of series with
his shoulders in people's eyes. Yep. On the Carolina side, our X Factor is a lot more traditional. Had a bit of a pop-off series for a young kid at very least in round 1. It's Seth Jarvis.
Yeah.
This is the traditional. He's not really a black ace because he played with the team this year, right? But he's the young kid coming into the league who has provided a significant boost to Carolina, particularly in a series where it turns out they needed it. It looked like they were going to take care of Boston pretty easily, but that series goes the distance, and Jarvis scoring a couple of key goals for them.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a revelation for them. Really young, talented guy that hasn't figured out all the way, but is productive enough and has figured it out enough to justify getting big minutes for them. Does a lot of things right. Is a creative offensive player. Is very, very good playmaker. Very gifted, and he plays hard. He's an interesting element for them. More of a playmaker that's not afraid to go to the net. Kind of the anti Marty Necas, who is a playmaker that doesn't want to get near the net. So, he's a good player. I like him. I liked him at his draft year. I liked him a lot. He was fun in the dub.
Cool. That's simple. I think I know what we're gonna get with these predictions, but let's bring them up on screen here.
Yeah.
Let's go. If you're gonna pick 4-1, you might as well man up and pick the sweep. Come on.
It's a gentleman's sweep, Rudo.
I'm just softies on this pod.
Gentlemen here.
Look, I picked Carolina to sweep Boston. It didn't work out. So just keep ride or die. With the
Almost got that one right.
It was close. It was close. I got my other sweep pick right, to be fair. So take that at very least. Look, on paper, these two teams are not that close together when it comes to talent and ability. AJ has talked about it. Igor Shesterkin has covered up so many flaws of this New York Ranger team that, barring him playing out of his mind, it's hard to see New York winning this series. So
I saw someone on Twitter trying to like dunk on analytics because like the Rangers, even in Game 7, got worked pretty good and
Larry
lost.
Brooks in the New York Post.
Is that that who it was? And he was like, oh, well, wouldn't you know it? Even though they
can't measure heart.
Can't measure heart. They're not keeping score and it's like, yeah, but when you're getting just run out of the building every night, at what point does that like catch up with you? And that's the, that's what
in our minds, it's now.
Right.
This series specifically.
Yeah. I think Pittsburgh, New York was the one series I got correct in the first round. Games played included.
It's like one of the few that I got totally wrong.
Oh, nice little humble brag there. No, it's one of the only ones I got completely wrong.
Well, you got to get your digs in where you can. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
did you guys see Gretzky's bracket was like perfect?
Dude, 8 for 8. Yeah, and he had like most of the series lengths correct as well.
I was like, what the?
Didn't he also pick like St. Louis to go to the finals though?
Yeah, he has St. Louis Carolina finals.
So
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. We do have one more series to get to here, as somehow the NHL has two battles going on as continentally far away from each other as you can possibly get in the NHL. The Battle of Florida is the one we are talking about here. Tampa just barely getting by the Leafs. Florida doing their thing, coming from behind a bunch, taking care of Washington. Honestly, I think this is going to be an amazing series. This is the series I'm looking forward to the most in round 2.
I think the best series is going to be Colorado St. Louis.
I mean, I'm going to love it, obviously, but I think this is the series to watch.
I think this series is going to be. I don't think it goes 7 games, but I think every game is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be like the Winnipeg-Anaheim series from a few years ago, where Anaheim swept them, but all 4 games were like edge of your seat down to the last minute. I don't think it's going to be a sweep, but I think it's going to be a really, really fun series.
I think Florida got punched in the mouth by Washington, and I think that they're going to wake up. And I'm hard out on Tampa. Like their depth problem.
How?
I think
How did you watch that series and still be hard out on them?
And then I think with Braden Point being legit hurt and not being there at all, I think they've got some other things going on. Vasilevsky wasn't very good in that series.
Has it been announced that Braden Point's done?
No, but he's doubtful. And I just think that the deck is stacked against Tampa Bay on this one. It's not that I don't think that they're any good or anything like that. I think that they're beat up. I think they're tired. I think that they used the last ace up their sleeve, the last bit of good hockey karma came out in that series. And if Kucherov doesn't find any level at all, then especially with no Braden Point around, I really don't see how they win the series. 2
things. When we made the graphics, I picked Braden Point as my X factor because there was still a chance that he was going to be fine. And
I think he is the X factor because if he's in, he changes that dynamic.
I just don't know. It's starting to sound less and less realistic that he's actually going to be in.
He's doubtful for game 1, which they might as well have just said he barely has an ankle
But
or a knee or like whatever is wrong with him.
The one thing I'm really happy about if I'm Tampa Bay right now is you've watched from game 1 to game 7, Vasilevsky's play has gone like this.
Yeah.
Moving in the right direction in goal.
He's the ultimate. Vasilevsky's the ultimate equalizer for them, and kind of in the same vein of Rudo's thought process with Edmonton over Calgary. I was having that same thought as you. Like, they may just be out of gas. This may just kind of be their last bit of magic. If it wasn't Battle of Florida, I would be tempted to agree with you. But like, they know the Florida Panthers have spent all year from last offseason to right now just trying to beat Tampa. And I think Tampa knows that. And I think they're going to dig in a little bit extra. The poise they showed at the end of that Tampa series, or excuse me, at the end of the Toronto series, like they are still the team to beat with the structure that they play.
Like, AJ, you said that they got punched in the mouth and are going to wake up. My problem is they got punched in the mouth, and I'm looking at their answers, and I'm going, Vasi's not going to let in that goal. Vasi's not going to let in that goal. Vasi's not going to let in that goal.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they're going to have an answer there.
Well, and then you watch the series against Toronto, and he let in a lot of goals.
Until he didn't.
Yeah, well, and then, hey, and when you call one of them back and you give them a freebie, it really helps.
I mean, that was a pretty clear pick.
I have no issue with the call, but just saying, like, it really helps when one of the ones where you beat the guy cleanly, you get it called back. To
be fair, the whistle
went
all
like be so lucky.
Seconds before the shot was even taken. So.
Yeah, again, I'm no issues with it. Just saying, like,
getting into top scorers for the Panthers at the top, as we all expected, Carter Verhaeghe with 12 points, and then a little bit more realistic with Giroux and Barkov behind him. But yeah, you can't expect another series like that out of Verhaeghe, right? Look, good player. Very, very good, but went absolutely off against Washington.
Yeah, well, and I think this is where kind of like the Blues, you're like, okay, well, it may not be Verhaeghe, but it could be Sam Reinhart,
sure.
Right? Like it could be pick a guy out of their top 9, and you could be like, yeah, I can see that guy going crazy for a series. Sure. So I think that's where Florida scares the shit out of you, and defensively, I think that they're okay. Like they're solid. I say okay. It sounds so like derogatory, but I think they're good. I just don't know that. I don't know that either team is great defensively.
And you've accidentally walked us into the Florida X factor here too.
I was about to ask,
healthier than Braden Point, but how healthy is Aaron Ekblad? Because he was clearly struggling at the end of that series.
The dude looks like he needs like help to get off the ice every single shift. But then when he's out there, he's making impact plays constantly.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, he might be dead in a month, but he's getting the job done every time he's on the ice. So until that stops, like, which injured guy do you trust more right now? Because right now, for me, it's Ekblad.
Oh, it's Ekblad for sure, yeah.
Well, and to me, the other X factor here for Florida is Sergei Bobrovsky. Very up and down opening round for him. And again, like if you're just looking at the goaltending duels, not a shot I'm picking against Andrei Vasilevsky in Vasilevsky versus Bobrovsky. Like no chance.
Yeah, I 100% on the it's Bob ain't it train on that front for sure. On Tampa's side with the production, the one thing they can kind of wear their cap on, tip their cap to, I don't know the phrase I'm trying to say.
Hang their hat on.
There it is. Thank you, Jesse. Victor Hedman is there's right behind Kucherov, obviously, and you know Kucherov really didn't play that well in that series, but Victor Hedman producing offensively for them.
Kucherov is 8 points, and it's like purely distributing pucks, right? Like he did not want to do a lot of shooting there.
Scored the one big goal in game 6.
Like but. Did score like not again, not to say like, oh, yeah, like great point, AJ. And then he only scored the game-winning goal in Game 6 or whatever. Like, yeah, true enough. But it's like there were 7 games, man. And if you watch that series, like wondering what the hell is going on with Kucherov was one of the dominant storylines. Like, he just was not part of much of anything they did.
So here's what's crazy about Kucherov is he's kind of got like that Mikko Rantanen factor to him where it's like, this guy's terrible. And he's playing it over a point per game.
Yeah, Mikko Rantanen has the Kucherov factor to him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's just so funny to see that because, like, you're right. Like, watching those games, you're like, what is up with this dude? Like, Kucherov looks terrible. Oh, 3 points tonight. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know nothing about anything.
He's got 8 points in the series, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely a bum, AJ. Good point.
Well, no, but like it's weird because like you're not wrong. Like the dude straight up would not shoot the puck.
Yep,
and it was just weird.
It's just so hard to, at least for me, to count a team like Tampa out right now. They've won 9 straight playoff series. Like, how can you bet against that?
Well, and now up to 17-0.
I watched the last one that they played, and I look at their injuries, and I look at their roster, and I just don't believe. I think they're coming up. I don't even like believe in Florida. Like, I don't have them making a cup final here. I just think that they have such an overwhelming offensive attack that at any point when they flip that switch, and the fact that they had to at the end of that series against Washington, that they had to do it a couple of times, I just wonder, like, are they going to wake up and the switch is just on now, and now they're just going to dominate? Because I do think that Battle of Florida is going to give this different life. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if this is Florida's Stanley Cup. Whereas Tampa Bay is just like, well, we'll see how this goes day by day. We know this process. And Florida's like, we waited all year for this. We wanted this more than anything else. We wanted this matchup. Yeah. Kind of like Colorado versus the second round. We waited all year to show everybody what's up right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just buying Florida stock. That pushes me towards Florida in this conversation. If Tampa didn't have the point injury and Kucherov was blah and Vasilevsky had been blah, I would probably be a much bigger buyer. But how they got through that Toronto series left me wanting quite a bit.
I just don't, I think, and maybe you're not, but the way you're talking there, I just feel like you're discounting Toronto a little too much. Like, that was the 4th best team in the NHL, and they grinded that series out. And when it came down to it near the end, they looked pretty comfortable holding that lead. Like, to your point of like the way they got out of that series, if it was LA, New York, Nashville, then it's like, yeah, you don't love the way they came out of that. But like, they took a team that was right up there at the top and came back on them and then closed them out.
I'm kind of with Jesse on this one. If Tampa had said, yeah, we won 2 cups. Toronto's a tough team. We got knocked out in the first round. It is what it is. But they beat Toronto, and it almost feels like, well, I guess we got to go win another cup now.
Right. It was the comments
Florida was an empty net goal, but they didn't lose that series. They also battled back in that series.
For sure.
And were like on the verge of like, oh God, they're in deep trouble. And they went from the verge of that to, all right, well, they won that thing.
So, yeah, but Tampa did the exact same thing against a much better team.
But the toll on Tampa, especially with the point injury, I think. So
you're more of saying not necessarily what they did against Toronto, but how they came.
Yeah, like I think, like Toronto? When we talk about this team gets through a series and it's the war of attrition, I think that the toll extracted was much greater on Tampa Bay, and I think it's going to have a big factor on this series. And I think that Florida, that combined with Florida waiting all year for this thing, and this being their personal Stanley Cup, that pushes me to Florida in this one.
All right, let's not beat around it anymore. Throw the predictions up. Sounds about right.
4-1 Florida.
I'm buying that Tampa is just spent.
No, I know. I'm just saying, just in general, like, yeah.
No,
I mean,
It's funny when you pick a series like 4-1, it sounds like it's really lopsided, but I think it's going to be like five mini World War IIIs.
Banger game after
it's going to be a great series. I just think Florida has that little. I'm buying the little extra.
See, I think if this is a shorter series, it favors Florida. The longer this goes on, I think it favors Tampa for the exact thing that you saw in Game 7. I could not be more impressed with the way that Tampa just composed themselves in that Game 7, despite losing point, despite having to shorten up their bench down to 9 forwards by the third period. They just seem so in control. The longer that series goes on and stays close, it favors Tampa. I think if this is going to be a short series, I'm with you, AJ.
If you get to Game 7, I will never, ever bet against Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah, straight up. Agree. I totally agree with that. Because if they get to Game 7, then whatever the point factor ended up being either ended up not mattering at all or they figured it out. Like, and he, they got through it.
As so-so as Vasilevsky was in that first round, he was phenomenal in Game 7.
Yeah, he was like that.
It was the save when he turned the puck over behind the net, and then just like super
casual.
Calm.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's not giving up a goal. Just run the clock. Just run the clock out. He's not going to give it up. Like,
he's on a different level in Game 7s for real.
He was great.
So
no doubt about that, man. He was awesome.
Hannah was watching that game with me, and I was telling her about. I was like, this because she goes, he looks huge, and I was telling her, he's 6,1,000, whatever he is. She goes, how does someone that big move? I was like, that's what we've all been saying for like 7 years. This guy is changing the position, and none of us can figure out how a guy
He's
that
not even
big
changing the position because you just can't find somebody that is 6'3", built like a fucking mansion, and moves like UC Saros. You're just what the shit is this, dude? How do you beat this guy?
She said that, and I was like, yeah, I know.
He's welcome to every pre-scouting meeting against the Lightning for the last 5 years.
You genuinely go into Chell, select a goalie, and turn all of the sliders to max, and that's Andrei Vasilevsky.
Congrats! You created a guy that exists.
That's basically what it is. Other than the Avs, St. Louis, it sounds like this is the series we're all expecting to at least provide some fireworks.
Totally.
Should be fun. If you want our Avs takes, we did a whole podcast on just the Avs Blues series on Friday. Yeah. Go listen to that one either here on YouTube.
Not that we're ignoring it. It's just that we did it. Yeah. We've had time with that series. So
for an hour 20, I think. It was barely shorter than this one.
For the Avs Blues alone. So, So go check that out if you want our Avs preview series. We will also be uploading these individually. If you missed part of the show, you can check those out on YouTube either tonight or tomorrow, depending on the series. We'll have them up. So go check those out too when they come up. Be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube. Any final thoughts from y'all before we get out of here on any of these series? All right, Jesse broke his mic and AJ's staring off into the sunset. So we're going to get out of here.
Just like to say Vasi as an octopus is a hilarious way to describe him.
Okay, we love y'all. We will be back tomorrow, pregame, watch along, postgame. We're back. Round 2 is underway. Be sure to tune into all of that stuff. I'm sure Jesse will have you covered. And with all the pregame stuff, they'll be at the arena. Jesse and AJ doing stuff. It'll be great. Tune into everything. We love you. We will talk to you tomorrow.